Peace everybody, welcome back, Rise of the Moors. Today I want to go into the importance of focusing or paying attention to local politics, state politics, etc. So I want to go into someone who's running for mayor of Providence, which is the city that's claiming jurisdiction over where I domicile at. So I want to start with the things that are supposed to be read at every meeting. I'm going to read with my favorite, caveat emptor. Moors are men, upright, independent, and fearless, who care for their loved ones and follow the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. They are fortified by the impenetrable doctrine built upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It is therefore folly at its greatest height for smelly culprits with their insidious plans to invade such a realm. They try, but their own bad planning brings down wrath upon their heads like the sword or Democulus had. Intrigue and scurrilous cunnings find a difficult path to travel within the ranks of the Moors. This is so because the Moorish movement has been well planned by Prophet Noble Drew Ali, whose latent powers are abundant, unknown, and may be called into action as a matter of defense at any moment. Noble Drew Ali knows the people within his ranks who are interested. They are the vanguard of the movement as the Moorish hordes increase here in America. All of the Moors are active, not passive. A member's interest can only be in one direction, and having traveled over the road years before, the Prophet knows where every member is along the road. A few feet below is another road where schemers work, where traitors grin, and culprits bask in the sun. They think they are on the same road with true Moors, but the Moors are high above on a pinnacle where they might view the destructionists as they fall for the last time and their bones bleach in the sultry midday sun. Hungry scavengers flying high catch scent, devour and leave the crying carcass out. And leave crying out, caveat emptor, cast out the dead carcass. The Moors high above see the plotters, purveyors, the worst that exist, hurl themselves downward by their own works as the hawks await. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by some of the people of our side of the nation that claim I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials of the nations of the earth, and the nations of the earth, that this is the sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds, the ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement, will be remembered. This is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. Noble Drew Ali. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam. This is the instruction from your prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is on now, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Drew Ali. And that's why many hearts have been turned to stone, and many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they would be confounded of their sins. These are the trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you see or hear. You fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Prophet warns all Muslims to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical speeches while at work in their homes or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction, Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We're for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Naudra Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet therefore is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their their prophet in the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace. Naudra Ali. So, since the Europeans are de facto on our land, meaning they exist in reality, but they're not recognized by law, since this is our land, we should know of all the colonial, colorable legislative acts that they're doing on our land. Mm-hmm. So we should know who's running for the so-called whatever position, because we read the general civil orders last week, prove that they know that they're not government, but they're still holding their positions, and they haven't corrected themselves yet. So they know that they're private, but they're still playing this game, acting like they're running for public office. Mm-hmm. So we should know what these people are talking about, right? Since this is our land. So, I wanted to play this video, but I wanted to read this little bit first. This is what Prophet Naudra Ali said. He said, "The greatest weapon in the hands of our group today in America is our press." Right, and this whole topic about this guy talking about he's running for some mayor position, we have every right to speak about this. Right, so that's based on the American Constitution, the First Bill of Rights. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. And then I have some quotes from the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People that also supports what we're saying. Since we're informing people, we're going to invoke rights of indigenous people, because indigenous people have the right to establish and control their educational systems and institutions, providing education in their own languages in a manner appropriate to their cultural methods of teaching and learning. Indigenous individuals, particularly children, have the right to all levels and forms of education of the state without discrimination. States shall, in conjunction with indigenous people, take effective measures in order for indigenous individuals, particularly children, including those living outside their communities, to have access when possible to an education in their own culture and provided in their own language. So since most of our people think that they're Negro, Black, Colored, and Indian, our culture is Moorish culture. Moors deal with law, so this is an example of that. And then Article 6, every indigenous individual has the right to a nationality. Article 15, indigenous people have the right to the dignity and diversity of their cultures, traditions, histories, and aspirations, which shall be appropriately reflected in education and public information. So since this guy is running for quote-unquote public office, which is really private, we have every right to speak against the colonial occupiers on our land, which since he wants to be a Morisco, a converso, and work for the system who knows that they're not government, we have every right to inform the public that he knows what's going on. Number 2, states shall take effective measures in consultation and cooperation with indigenous peoples concerned to combat prejudice and eliminate discrimination, and to promote tolerance, understanding, and good relations among indigenous people and all other segments of society. Article 16, indigenous people have the right to establish their own media in their own languages and to have access to all forms of non-indigenous media without discrimination. States shall take effective measures to ensure that state-owned media duly reflect indigenous cultural diversity. States without prejudice to ensuring full freedom of expression should encourage privately owned media to adequately reflect indigenous cultural diversity. So we're doing this right now. Mm-hmm. You see? And notice how they mention diversity, because any single time that this European guy says something, it's diversity of citizenship, because he's European. Mm-hmm. This isn't Europe. You see what I'm saying? So I want to go into this. Hopefully the camera can pick up on the audio.
Ready. I do want to introduce the newest announced candidate for Mayor of Providence in 2018, Kobe Dennis. Kobe, you want to come on out? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Great to have you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, big news, running for mayor. Not going to be a dull next 18 months for you. Talk about why you're running for mayor.
Oh boy, it all boils down to one thing: the community. Josh, I've been really, mulling over it as the news has said for a long time, but the community just keeps coming out and keeps saying, why don't you give it a try? We'd like to bring back the old days when Providence was just a good place to live, safe, fun. So we're trying to bring that back.
So I think Mayor Lorza won in a complicated race against Buddy Cianci in a very close race, and it seemed like a lot of the time that it was anti-Buddy Cianci vote. He was a two-time convicted felon. He was 70-something years old, and people were looking for almost anything, ABC, anything but Cianci. But he got a fresh start, and he had an opportunity. Has he taken advantage of the opportunity that's been given him to serve people in Providence?
Absolutely. I think he's taken advantage. He had a great vantage point right now to come right in and do amazing things. He promised the world. He had me believe him. I was actually a supporter in the beginning. And he had me believing, and he got the community to believe, and then he got right in and just forgot all about what the mission was. I mean, we're talking about community, infrastructure, services. Everything is lacking. We're still looking for a fire chief.
Yeah, I mean, we've functionally not had a fire chief, and I think in 2.5 years. There's a lot of, we live up on the east side, but obviously talk to folks all over the place. The east side came out for him in that election very, very strong. I think he won 80% of the vote. Anecdotally, I think people are frustrated with him. Crime is an issue on the east side, and it's a bigger problem and more violent problem in other sections of the city. How do you tackle those issues?
Well, first of all, I was at the average east side. I'd be livid right now because they actually did get him into the city hall. Everyone knows that. And showing up petty crime is big time up there. Breaking in the car, breaking in entrance, things like that is really on rampant. And why is that? Because PPD is down to $3.99. They're about $390. It usually drops at about $4.90. They've been like that for about a year. That's ridiculous. So we've been waiting. Oh, of course, now election season's coming. Now there's a recruiting class. I just saw that.
Yeah.
But that's just such a coincidence. But I just think making sure we get more police classes out there.
Now let's stop right there, right? Because he's talking about getting more police. Now, isn't part of the problem the police? Right? Watch. We'll do this again as an example. Because he's talking about increasing some whatever police force. Right? Connecticut State Police is the primary law enforcement agency for approximately one-half of the state's 169 municipalities and serve as the de facto highway patrol. So we got to look into this word de facto. Now this is Connecticut, well, so-called Connecticut, the European colony that's acting like the state. Mm-hmm. So if they're de facto, what are the chances of Rhode Island colony being de facto? If they're both European colonies, you see what I'm saying? So they're admitting that they're de facto. In law and government, de facto describes practices that exist in reality, even if not recognized by official laws. So if this guy's talking about, why is he talking about police if they're not law enforcement? Why is he not talking about sheriffs? Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And then that goes back to, again, the general civil orders. I'll just read this little excerpt. Those organizations currently calling themselves the State of Alaska or the State of Alaska, etc., so State of Rhode Island, State of Connecticut, are representatives of two different governmental services corporations operated by the Federal Reserve, State of Alaska, lowercase, and the International Monetary Fund, State of Alaska, all capital letters, doing business as franchisees of the United States of America Incorporated and the United States Inc., respectively. They have no representational capacity whatsoever and are operating under commercial contracts only because these, quote, state and, quote, federal entities have all functioned under conditions of non-disclosure and semantic deceit, serving to promulgate fraud upon the organic states, meaning the people, and the American people, so the people again. They are all to be considered criminal syndicates to the extent that they have been aware of their status and have failed to correct their operations and representations. All contracts held by these organizations or assumed to be held by these organizations are null and void for fraud. These contracts include, but are not limited to, contracts for sale, for labor, for trade, citizenship contracts, power of attorney, licenses, mortgages, registrations, and application agreements of all kinds. All signatures of American state citizens acting under the influence of semantic deceit and non-disclosure are rescinded. All those individuals engaged in employment as federal and state and municipal employees and, quote, elected officials, unquote, are hereby given notice that they are employees of a private, for-profit corporation that are merely under contract to provide stipulated public services, having no special status, having no immunity, and having no authority as sovereign nations or states. Any actions that they take infringing on the rights and prerogatives of American state citizens are criminal acts without exception and are to be treated as criminal acts. These individuals have exactly the same standing as employees of any other commercial company, and the rules, regulation codes, and other statutes they enforce are obligations unique to those organizations only. So any state of statute, law, whatever they're claiming, is private. Any law from quote-unquote City of Providence is private. And this is from General Civil Orders, June 10th, 2014. So again, why is he talking about this stuff?
Yeah.
And again, they know that they're not legitimate. Yet, he knows that most of our people don't know. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? I'm not attacking him. I don't really care who's saying it. It's the fact that there's a person saying it and they know that they're a fraud. Mm-hmm. And he's Asiatic, meaning he knows he's a Moor. Mm-hmm. And he's running for some type of political position. So therefore he's been through some Masonic order, mm-hmm. meaning he has a Moorish fez in secret. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you don't know. You can't not know and try to run for a position. How can you do that?
Yeah, we definitely get, more neighborhood watch programs, so on and so forth. So you definitely got to change the way you do some things.
Providence uniquely, too, is one of the only cities in the country that has more firefighters than police officers. And, is that something that can be reformed over the next few years?
Well, I know one thing. Sorry to cut you off, Josh. I know one thing. I will not go into the platoon change thing. I don't think a laws knew a thing about anything about platoons. And I was in the military and know nothing about platoon changing, and I would not do that to the average firefighter. So what we're going to do is try to look at, per capita, how many firefighters we actually need in the city. How about doing that? How about bringing in the firefighters and talking to them about downsizing and in different ways? I really think it's about communication. No one's talking to us anymore. That's the average citizen. When's the last time they've seen the mayor?
So one of the statistics we talk about a lot is you went to Central High School. Right now, and I'm pretty close on these, is that the ability to read at grade level is at 12%. Ability to achieve mathematics is at 9%. And in fairness to this mayor, that's been going on at Central for, as long as I've lived in the city, since I was 7 years old. How do we change that? How do we make it equitable? It's not fair to anybody. First of all, it's not fair to the kids going through the school, and it's not fair to everybody else who's paying for that education, which is no cheaper than any other education in the state of Rhode Island.
That's a great point. No one understands that we actually are paying for it. It's not free. People think public schools are free.
Yeah,
we're paying for it. What I would say, first of all, just like the infrastructure of the schools, the education is crumbling as well. And it's not just Central. Most of the public schools, as I said.
So he's admitting that public schools are failing, right? Now, let's see as to why they're failing. Now, this is from the philosophy of the General Education Board, which I've seen this video already, and he does not mention this. But here's why the schools are failing. They're actually not failing. They're doing what they've been set up to do. So here's the philosophy of the General Education Board, right there, General Education Board. You can just Google this. Is easily, you don't got to do no deep scholarship for this one. Just Google General Education Board and go to their philosophy. And it says, in our dream we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves to perfect docility in our molding hands. The present education conventions fade from their minds, and unhampered by tradition, we work our own goodwill upon a grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have not to raise up among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen, of whom we have ample supply. So they're not trying to produce anything from these schools. That's their whole mission. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like he's commenting on it like, yeah, there's a problem, we need to fix it, when their whole thing, the whole public school system, state-funded school system, is for European colonial occupation, mm-hmm. to keep our people suppressed. Mm-hmm. And they said, what did they say? 12%, right? 12% of the people from Central can't read. Now let's look at the demographics of these people. Let me see. Let's see if we can find the population, like who's attending these schools. Click on this. So 53% male, 47% female. Total minority enrollment is 95%. So they're referring to our people as minors, meaning a childlike mentality. That's what minor means. Mm-hmm. So clearly, our Asiatic, African, Moorish children are going to this school. 95% of us are going to this school. Mm-hmm. And they just admitted that it's not just Central. So mm-hmm. It's not just this high school, it's other high schools where our people are attending. And mm-hmm. they can't read. Why? Because they're not taught etymology. Etymology is the root of words. Mm-hmm. How you figure out what a word means, what it truly means. Mm-hmm. If he was a real politician and he really cared about the minds of the people, wouldn't you mention this?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you mention that it's interesting that a school where 95% of Asiatic African students are attending, they don't teach etymology? Mm-hmm. And then that would immediately relate you back to the General Education Board, their philosophy, how they're not going to teach us anything? Mm-hmm. Since he said he thinks that a mayor should communicate or talk to the people, which it should be more than talking, it should be informing the people. Mm-hmm. How come he's not informing them or talking to them about this? Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? That's very interesting to me.
Said in the newspaper recently, I panhandle before I send my kids to a middle school here. It's that bad. Yeah. I go into these schools, I teach a lot about anti-bullying, I speak about civil rights and so on and so forth. These schools are deplorable. So the education is
Didn't he just mention civil rights? That's the 14th Amendment, isn't it? Hold on. And he's teaching about it. So if he's teaching about it, shouldn't he know about this right here? Hold on, let me get the document. So here's, you want to see this? That's congressional record, proceeding and debates of the 90th Congress, first session, volume 113, part 12. And this goes into the 14th Amendment since he's talking about civil rights. We should be talking about human rights, not civil rights, right? Since he says he teaches about it, he should know this, shouldn't he? So if he's teaching about civil rights, that means he knows law, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So that means he might be aware of the general civil orders, huh? Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is from Congressional Record. This is page 15641. Whereas the purported 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution was never lawfully adopted in accordance with the requirements of the United States Constitution, because 11 states of the Union were deprived of their equal suffrage in the Senate in violation of Article 5, when 11 southern states, including Louisiana, were excluded from deliberation and decision in the adoption of the joint resolution proposed, set forth 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is unconstitutional. The purported...
It's locked.
Oh, it's locked? Can you open it? So the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional. The purported 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution is and should be held to be ineffective, invalid, null, void, and unconstitutional. And then it continues to say on the next page, 15642, Texas rejected the 14th Amendment, Georgia rejected it, Florida rejected it, Alabama, North Carolina, Arkansas, South Carolina, Kentucky, North Carolina, I already said that, North Carolina. Continuing on the next page, 15643, Virginia rejected it, Louisiana, Delaware, Maryland, Mississippi, Ohio, and New Jersey all rejected the 14th Amendment. So if he's talking about how he's teaching in schools about civil rights, is he teaching this? How we should be arguing human rights, not civil rights? Mm. But this guy's claiming to run for mayor of Providence?
Yeah.
And he's talking about how mayors should talk to the people? Mm-hmm. How come he's not talking to them about this?
Morale, it's everything. Absenteeism. And as you alluded to, the average kid that graduates from Central or Hope or Mount Pleasant, they go to CCRI and they're spending thousands on remedial courses. You know, so it's just not a good situation. So we're going to definitely try to change that.
I coached a lot of kids over at South Providence Rec who came out of Roger Williams Middle School. Yeah. That is a rough and tumble place. And I don't think many parents would want to see their child's worst enemy go to Roger Williams Middle School.
Not at all. And that's my...
Isn't it interesting how they're... First of all, the name of the school is Roger Williams. Mm-hmm. Wasn't he a clergyman? Yeah. Didn't he say in his own book, The Key to American Language, that he's going to make his name famous amongst the Gentiles, talking about us dark-skinned Asiatic people? Mm-hmm. Now there's a school named after him. Mm-hmm. And then we just read, you weren't here, I'll show you, but you have my book. And then we just read that that philosophy is not to teach us anything. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And then and then it's named after the guy Roger Williams who infiltrated the Narragansett Moors and overthrew our stuff. Yeah. And they're literally talking about this very school named after this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Community, you know, I'm not talking about it or at it. I'm talking to it because I know it's something that I need to improve. But I'm serious. The average citizen does not want to send their kid there. Too bad. The Providence people, you know, Providence citizens, they get a checklist and they get to choose out of 3 schools. You know, bad, worse, really, really bad. You know, and parents call me every day. This is how I know this. And I visit the schools. A lot of the kids in my programs are at these schools. They're not very happy. They come with no homework every day. And believe me, I'm not villainizing the teachers. Believe me, love the teachers. I love the staff, down to the janitors. But it's about the system, and we got to change it.
There's a reality of running for office, and I don't think it's as big a reality as some will make it out to be. Right. But you got to raise some money.
The money. Keep there the money, yeah.
Now, in all honesty, listen, you know, we compete every day against major news organizations and do just fine because we've built an infrastructure of databases and are able to move content. Can you replicate a real grassroots movement and be able to compete for the mayor's race?
And that's what, first of all, by the way, I love this alternative news source. So we love it. Go local, let's go. It's a lot of good news. Yes, grassroots movement, we are going to do an epic proportion. We are going to get out there. We're going to beat the ground. We have people coming from everywhere calling me every day. They want to be a part of this. It's exciting. It's a movement. I have the 20-somethings. I have the millennials all talking about politics a year before. I mean, we have tens of thousands of people on my feeds. I was talking about keep running and let's go. And I'm not telling people, hey, vote for Kobe. I'm telling people, get out there and vote. Get involved. But yes, this is the first time the inner city communities are really going to write a check for a candidate. They haven't done that in years. So,
can you Bernie Sanders this and get folks to give $5 a month for the next 18 months?
As I call it, hustling. I'm going to hustle as much as I can. I'm going to try to get these Bernie dollars and the Kobe bucks. So let's get going with your $5, $10. We'll take it all.
The mayor, I think, often gets criticized for not being hands-on. I think that's you know, we're told stories about that. We try not to beat him up on sort of the insignificant, but you don't see him. You know, most events that he's at are very staged. press conferences. Does that create an opportunity because people really don't know him on a first-name basis?
When I was taking to the neighborhood, people literally did not know who he was. I mean, and he kept saying he's from Cranston Street and so on and so forth. I've never seen him. I was raised in Cranston Street, Buckland Park. All right, so never seen him. My friends never seen him. So just to get past that, he still had a chance to get out there.
Yeah.
To walk around downtown. I was just walking here, Josh, and 3 kids from Johnson Wells stopped me. Hey, you're running for mayor. This is what we're talking about. And I stopped and talked to them. I was almost late. So that's what we need.
I will say this, we were covering a press event up at City Hall about, he might have been in office for 3 or 4 months, and he could not pronounce Nunaconican. And I think if you got to be mayor, you do have to be able to articulate each of the neighborhoods. We talked a little bit about the east side. Let's go around the city a little bit. You know, the south side is a very different place than people think it is. South Side's a very strong small business environment.
Absolutely.
Broad Street, there's more vacant stores on these sections of downtown Providence there are storefronts vacant up there.
Right.
How do you tie the Latino community into the movement, and especially small business owners who are pretty conservative, want coverage on by the police, they want fire coverage, they want the streets to be safe, they want the roads to be paved because it's good for their business.
So that's exactly what you just named it all, services. I'm going to, from everything from trash removal. I can promise them, you know, better trash removal, better snow removal, more police officers, you know, firefighters who shouldn't have to go answer to calls for homeless people every day. That's most of the firefighters' calls. And like I said, nothing against the firefighting profession at all, but they shouldn't be going to help out an intoxicated man on the street every other hour. I've seen it for myself. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'll go up and down Broad Street, promising the people, listen, things can get better. We need to collaborate, get together, try to fix up the storefronts. You know, combine the city's funds with the local businesses' funds, and try to, you know.
But he's talking about bringing the community together, and he's talking about the storefronts, right? Now there's a lot of abandoned. You've been on Broad Street, right? You know about Broad Street. You know, long Broad Street is. There's a bunch of abandoned stuff there, right? Now, how come if we're talking about improving the condition of our people, why is he not talking about the rights of indigenous people? This is what the rights of indigenous people says. This is from the United Nations. And since, you know, a lot of our problems are economic, we don't own anything.
Basically.
Yeah. So let's right. So let's go into this. What the state's obligated to do for us, right? This is Article 20 of United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Indigenous people have the right to maintain and develop their political, economic, and social systems or institutions to be secure in the enjoyment of their own means of substance and development, and to engage freely in all traditional and other economic activities. Indigenous people deprived of their means of substance and development are entitled to just and fair redress. This is Article 21. Indigenous people have the right without discrimination to the improvement of their economic and social conditions, including inter alia, which means amongst other things, in the areas of education, employment, vocational training, meaning training to be able to do a job, and retraining. So if you have skills and you just need a refresher course, you have the right to that. Housing. Why are there homeless indigenous people on these streets? And you know, looking up and down Broad Street, you know, right near that 7-Eleven and Crossroads, there's homeless people there. Why? If we got all these abandoned buildings on Broad Street,
we're not teaching our people the values of health, building, planting, growing.
And why are we talking about that? And why aren't there gardens in these so-called schools where these so-called Asiatic people don't even know how to read? You see the whole General Education Board 1902, Frederick T. Gates, they don't want us to grow at all. And then again, you were here, we just read the General Civil Orders, they know that they're not governed. So to the average person who doesn't know this, he seems like, oh yeah, he's for the people.
And he's only for one country.
Yeah, why is he not talking about this?
He's for the system.
He's for the system.
So let me continue. So that was Article 1. States shall take effective measures and, where appropriate, special measures to ensure continuing improvement of their economic and social conditions. Particular attention shall be paid to the rights and special needs of indigenous elders, women, youth, children, and persons with disabilities. So again, if we want to have a massage parlor, we give indigenous people massages on Broad Street. Hey, since the colonists messed things up when they got here, and Obama signed this, making it so that the United States is obligated to this, so we know that they're a corporation company, they're private. But their CEO, Obama, signed this, meaning they're obligated to it. So if we go to any so-called elected official, which we know they're not elected, and say, hey, us indigenous people need this building renovated, and because we want to set up to do this, aren't they obligated to fund it? Wasn't that just Article 21?
Yes.
So why aren't they talking about this?
Like she said, he's for the system. He's not trying to change the system. He's for the system.
And that's proof, isn't it?
Correct.
Anything to try to rejuvenate the whole atmosphere of South Providence, West End. You know, East Side's doing okay over there when it comes to the storefronts and properties. Why shouldn't they all look alike? They all should look alike.
We have a lot of restaurateurs who come up here from Federal Hill and say their business is off between 30 and 40% since the parking meters went up there. It seems like penny wise and pound foolish. We've seen an explosion in Cranston at Garden City.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, is it worth the dollars, $1 million or $2 million in parking meter fees? Is that a good trade-off to have parking meters and have the impact on small businesses?
It's not a good job. I may be new to this, but the job of a mayor is to improve the quality of life for the people that you're serving. Okay, you need to improve. That is not improving the quality of life of the people. I don't even know who it's improving the quality of life for, but not us. We want to be able to park and go into a place to eat in our own communities without worrying about, like I had to today, and pay $10 to park because the parking, I didn't have change or a card on me, so on and so forth. So it's not helping out. You know, it's just the 700 meters. I don't know if that's what it's worth, the 700 meters or the charity meters. Both of the ideas.
Giving meters, they're giving meters.
I don't even know the
Yeah,
name.
probably the most divisive issue that's hit Providence, and since Mayor Lors has come in, has been his edict.
Now, they were just talking about parking tolls, right?
That has nothing to do with what's really going on with indigenous people.
Yeah,
or
no,
false
but
people.
you gotta understand, they're playing a game. So let's just expose their game. Now here's the right, since people are complaining about parking and having to pay to park, here's the rules on parking, right? The right to park or travel is part of the liberty of which the natural citizen cannot be deprived without due process of law under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. So you can just Google that case number that I have listed, and it's right here. It says it right here. This is from SupremeJustia.com. Cases Federal, U.S., right? The right to park, excuse me. Yeah, the right to travel is part of the liberty, so it's the same thing. It just doesn't say the word park. I'm pretty sure if you scroll down, we'll find that.
So basically, instead of saying you're putting money into meters, parking should be free.
Yeah, because it is free.
It is free.
Yes.
So why invest money into things that we don't need?
Exactly. Now, if the people knew this, if the people knew that the right to park and
That
travel,
would have been mentioned in his segment,
he would have just said, well, they're violating the Constitution.
the Fifth Amendment.
That's what he would have said, right?
He's not educated enough to run for mayor, correct, right now.
Well,
He's not educating himself.
he's not educating the people, and he just said the job of the mayor is to improve the quality of life of the people, right? Isn't that what it just said?
He's not educated.
You see what I'm saying? And then again, a right which is free and open to all is not subject to a license or tax. Paying to park on the street, that's a tax.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So again, we have the right to park, but why is he bringing up this constitutional issue if the Constitution is the supreme law of the land?
The Fifth Amendment.
You know what I'm saying? And then again, right, since a parking meter is a tax, let's go into the State of Rhode Island Constitution, Article 13, Section 5. Since we're dealing with constitutional issues, Noble Drawley said he wants his people to come back into the constitutional fold of government. So let's deal with law. Since he's running for so-called mayor or something, and he's dealing with parking, whatever, that don't if you don't pay the parking meter, you'll get a ticket and have to go to so-called court.
Yes.
So we're dealing with law, right?
Yes.
So let's see what the law has to say. Article 13, Section 5 of the Constitution for the State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. Section 5, local taxing and borrowing powers. Nothing contained in this article shall be deemed to grant any city or town the power to levy, assess, and collect taxes, or to borrow money, except as authorized by the General Assembly. So he just admitted, I don't even know who authorized to put this down.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning the people didn't agree to this. Therefore, it's unconstitutional, was it not?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
You see the problem? And most of our people, that would just go right over their head. Like, oh, these are just parking meters. We're just going
We
to
have an
pay.
African American mayor.
Yeah.
Really not understanding
Yeah.
that they are as well indigenous.
But that's the sellout. That's part of the whole sellout thing. So again, I'm not talking bad about this guy. I'm talking about the politics that are involved, the laws that are involved that he's not talking about, but he's talking about running for some position and talking about the job of the mayor is to improve the quality of life of the people. Well, if the parking meters are affecting people's businesses, wouldn't you talk about what the law states about that?
About free parking.
Exactly.
To the police department, Steve Brown's coming on next. He'll have a different opinion. To not enforce some previous ordinances related to panhandling, and that, you know, former Mayor Paolino has been adamant about that negative impact that it's going to have. How do you fix that? How do you balance the civil rights issue coupled with the issue of quality of life?
Well, first of all, these people who I feel, you know, very bad for, a lot of them are veterans like myself. I really believe they need an alternative. Most people knew what really happened. So at crossroads and places like that, they have to leave by a certain time. Where are these people going if you don't have a home? Okay, we need places like on Broad Street, Elmwood Ave, the East Side, different places for them to go into. Excuse me. So that's why one of my programs, not to reveal much of my platform because we're still working on it, but we definitely know we're going to offer, you know, services in lieu of taxes. So if people come out and open their places that are closed during the day, maybe they'll open up their coffee shop and let the people come in and sit and watch TV, have a cup of coffee. It's pennies on the dollar, okay? But here we go. Now we'll improve the traffic coming to the downtown and things like that. Churches, community centers, they should be open during the day. There's no kids there. There's no, you know, people there worshiping. Why aren't these places open?
Probably the most important question I touched on it before you came on. Dobie Dennis, one of the all-time. How is he doing?
Dobie Dennis is doing great. That's
okay. How old is he now?
Oh, Dobie's well into his 50s, late 50s.
Okay, if you and he played one-on-one today, who would win that?
He would still win.
He would still school you.
He would still school me. He's a legend.
If you don't know it, like Mount Hockey, Central High School basketball under Coach Adams during the 60s, 70s, and even into the early 80s, was one of the most dominant sports teams ever to hit Rhode Island. Maybe Coventry Wrestling, just pulling another one out. And then all of them went up and played up on Smith Street, one of the best summer leagues of all time. And it really was, you know, Marvin Barnes and all those guys coming out of Central really were a sense of pride to the city. How do we restore that? You know, the Providence high schools are not what they used to be in things like arts, music. Music's barely even in the system, and in athletics.
There's no.
Now, you notice how they were talking about there's no arts in the school, there's no athletic programs. Let's go back into, again, the philosophy of the General Education Board, which started around 1902, got major funding around 1913. Who was on the scene then? Noble Drawley, who was informing the people. All right, let's go back into what they have to say about the whole school systems. Again, we shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have not to raise among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statements of whom we now ample supply. So now do you see why there's no music programs? It's not because there's no funding.
They want to keep us.
Exactly. They don't want us to be anything.
That's just like, again, with the meters, they want to keep us broke.
Yeah.
Money doesn't have to be given to meters if there's free parking.
And even with that, let's say there's no funding to fund this musician program. Is it not true that in 1933 they took out all of the gold and replaced it with the fiat note, which they can print at any single time they want? So since they can print any amount of paper they want, they can print enough to fund musician stuff, to fund anything, because it's not real money.
And I had art in musical class when I was in elementary, and then it just recently got shut down, I want to say close to like 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm. You see why?
They want to keep us dumbfounded, and plus they don't want to teach the real art behind this heritage.
Yeah. Because once you start learning things,
etymology, symbolism.
Exactly. Once you start learning, you're gonna get connected back to your ancestors, because we set everything up here.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Feeder programs, Josh, at all. After school, you know what these kids do? They go hang in the street. The recreation centers are a joke. Okay, go to any recreation center right now, and I guarantee you, even though we're talking about basketball, that's all they'll play. There's no chess team. You know, there's no girls, you know, club. All that. You go online, it will look beautiful, almost like the 1,000-day video. It looks like Providence was the best place in the world to live. That's not true. All right, you go into these places, which I do, because I live in the inner city. You go in these places and the same thing's going on, and we need more things for these kids to do. Feeder programs to help. We need a chess club. We need debate teams. We need, you know, football teams for the kids that, you know, intramural stuff, for the kids that don't make the varsity team, things like that. That's how we'll get it to a respectable level where we'll start putting kids in the pros and people from people will go to Providence College. How many kids from Providence go play for Ed Cooley? I haven't known since Abdullah, you know, there's none. So we need to fix that.
Kobe, listen, you're going to be on here over the next year plus numerous times. We really appreciate you coming on right as you kick off, and keep us abreast. You know, we're here to serve everybody in the city of Providence, the mayor included, in getting the message out to best serve people. So, you know, keep everybody in mind and keep the messages going. I want to thank you so much. Congratulations for jumping into.
So that was that interview. I don't want to go into this. This interview is a good one right here too, because how he mentioned in this video he's not going to make any promises, and then he just promised, like, you know, better trash removal, all that kind of stuff. So you can watch that on your own right here. I'll just click on it. Yeah, but I mean, you know, we're all human, so we're all prone to make mistakes. But
at our expo,
like I said,
we tell you what's on the
I'm not trying to attack this man's character. I'm just trying to inform people in a jurisprudence type mindset. Like, he's mentioning these things, but he's not bringing up things like
the solutions.
Yes, like the rights of indigenous people, where the state has to fund us to not be homeless anymore.
Yeah.
And there's no excuse because there is no real money.
And you have a homeless person right here.
And you're an indigenous woman.
Yes.
And they said special attention should be paid to you.
And I'm disabled.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
You see the corruption? How can you be an Asiatic so-called black man talking about this stuff when, let's go into this again. The Inter-American Declaration on who an indigenous person is. Right? This was approved 1997. This is from the Organization of American States, meaning Brazil, Costa Rica, Chile, right? The real Americans, not the Europeans acting like they're Americans. They said in this declaration, indigenous people are those who embody historical continuity with societies which existed prior to the conquest and settlement of their territories by Europeans. Now, don't you see this woman right here that's claiming to be governor of something? Isn't she European? Look at her skin. Now, again, if we go to that, the Noah Webster's dictionary on the English language, the definition of American is what? One of the various copper-toned natives found in America, right? Now look at our skin. Aren't we brown?
Correct.
Is she brown? Is she brown?
No, she's not.
Okay. So that means she's one of the Europeans that settled our lands, huh?
Yes.
Okay, so that means she's not an indigenous person. So that this don't apply to her, right? As well as peoples brought involuntarily to the New World who freed themselves and connected them back with cultures from which they've been torn. So those people who think that they're black, don't they say that they were sent over here on ships? So if you still believe in that story, even though some people were shipped here, but most of us are already here, even if you still believe in that, you're still an indigenous person. So what does that mean? Rights of indigenous people applies to you. So even him running for so-called mayor, which we know isn't a public office, he shouldn't he know this since he's talking about he's studying civil stuff, civil rights?
Yeah.
Don't these rights affect our people?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Didn't he just say the mayor's job is to improve the quality of life of the people? What?
So either he's for the system or he's incompetent for the
Exactly.
job.
There's only it's either one of those two.
He's not educated.
It's either one of those two. Either he's not educated or he's against us. That's it. Either he's incompetent or he's exactly. There's only those two. There's no whole. He didn't know. Well, if you didn't know, should he be running for mayor?
He should. And basically, what it comes down to is when it comes down to masonry and a lot of things like that is. They're for themselves and they steal Kemetic spirituality. Yeah. And this is basically what indigenous people is based on, is Kemetic spirituality. Yeah. Kemetic times are supposed to be coming back, and they're instead choosing their own pockets, their own benefits, and what they'll benefit from it, instead of teaching the truth. Like you said, he's incompetent.
Well, if he has information.
He's incompetent because if you just pulled out the Fifth Amendment, just again, back to parking, he's not talking about, like you said, constitutional laws.
Yeah.
He's not teaching our rights as indigenous people.
Yeah.
So he's talking about Bernie Sanders, deposit $5,
Yeah.
get $10, get
So
whatever
he's-
you get for votes.
So he's asking for your money, but he's not informing you.
Yeah, and he's still taking from indigenous people, basically, is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And they're not even learning their correct rights.
They're not even.
So
like,
they'll be giving you $5 for a deposit and then
For
paying
nothing.
$5 for a parking meter.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's taking and keeping us below. So in my case, I believe it's not one of the two, it's both. He's for the system as well as incompetent.
Wow.
I didn't mean to do
No,
that.
no, that's cool.
Because I'm saying I'm not against him because
Yeah.
we haven't had a black mayor. So it's not that. He's incompetent. And
It's the principles.
and he's for the system,
Yeah.
but he's
Exactly.
not really. He's saying he wants to change the system. Changing the system, he would have to be against the system
Yeah.
of what's going on to indigenous people.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't want to be looked at as an enemy to the same people he's trying to get in good
Yeah.
with. But it's not helping us out as
Exactly.
indigenous people.
Exactly.
I am so sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
I am sorry.
And to
No.
be fair, it's every candidate.
Because you're like, it's one of the two.
No,
It's
no,
obviously
no.
both.
No, I'm just saying.
No, it's one of the two. Like, no, when you
Yeah.
said it's one of the, no, it's if you look at it and you watch all of his interviews, his documentaries, whatever's going on with
Yeah.
him, he's contradicting his promises. And he's not sure. When you want to run for something, you have to be sure.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to be
That's
ready.
and that's the same thing with nationality. When you nationalize, you know who you are. You know who you have allegiance to. You see what I'm saying? They're talking about so-called Latino people. Right there it says Latino. There's no such thing as a Latin person. Latin's not a nationality. You know what I'm saying? So again,
See, I still got some educating to do with you, brother.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that's
I'm
fine.
still learning as we go, but I'm very I can criticize very well. I'm not meaning to criticize him, but I'm still firm
we're
on
not.
how you guys, how she said he's either incompetent for this job, or how you basically said he's for the system.
Yeah.
And basically, he's not trying to challenge the system.
Yeah.
He's not challenging it because he's not competent and he's not learning. So it's sad that you have two people, one that's 25 and another one probably 2 years younger, that knows more possible constitutional laws than this man that's running for mayor. Hell, I'd rather have you running for mayor right now. You be a woman, you're ingenious, and you're competent enough to know you study on these things. And it's hard to go out there and get these votes. And again, this is where the abuse of power comes into. It's not
Exactly.
what you know, it's who you know.
Exactly.
But my favorite saying is, it's not what you know and who you know, but it's who you know and what you know to get you where you gotta go. You place them together. You see, that's where they go wrong. They use just who they know, and they throw away what they should know and what they know.
But even then,
And again, he was favoring sides. Oh, the east side's fine. Let me stop you right there on Thayer Street. There's not one Spanish or African American business. It's all pizza, Greek,
Yeah, it's the
or
Italians,
one Indian.
even
There's
the
not-
street is the
on
Italian
Thayer
flag.
Street, I worked on Thayer Street for 3 years of my life. There's not one Hispanic business. There's not one African American business, indigenous people business on Thayer Street. The East Side is not okay. They're not learning the correct heritage, but they keep stealing it from us. She's a European. She's not
Yeah,
indigenous.
and hold on, that's the point of this class, so that to get our people interested in local politics and so-called state politics, to inform them of the actual laws that are going on. So in like the situation you're in, we can come together as a drill society and institute a council court to bring these people to justice. Because within their system, hold on, because within their system is their system.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
This, between indigenous people and the Europeans on our land, that is a diversity of citizenship issue. So we need to be on the mental competence to understand that.
Okay.
Anything that happens between them and us is diversity of citizenship.
And we're not providing any other option than their courts.
Exactly.
Their so-called courts.
So what we need to do, this is why Noble Drew Ali said, every temple must have a school. Because from the schools come the leaders of the nation. Right now there's only 3 of us in this room.
Yeah.
So we need to increase the consciousness of our people to even begin to think like this. The position of the government are public servants. So yeah, we will still be able to elect our own whatever, but they would just be to protect us. These people aren't protecting us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're in their
They
own
would just be
interests.
the representative of our
Yeah.
group.
So again, indigenous government is needed. It's just we need to be on the understanding that government doesn't control our lives. They protect our lives. Our people are still on the thing where they think these Europeans or these so-called government, and they're not government, control our lives, and that's absolutely not their job. Their charge is, right? Read the Declaration of Independence. They'll say, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. We know the word man does not mean masculine. It means mind. So all things, your creator, whoever your creator is, Allah, Yahweh, Jehovah, the Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it, by their creator, were certain unalienable rights. And among these rights, and that to secure these rights, governments were instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So again, government sole job is to secure our rights. So when this guy's talking about parking on the street and not talking about constitutional rights, clearly he's not government. You see what I'm saying? So our people need to understand that government is set up to secure rights. Whenever they're not doing that, they're not government. You see what I'm saying? So your point is right, but we still need the consciousness of our people to be on that level, because they think government is to control their mind, govern the mental. We need to govern our own mind.
We need to teach the youth, like you said, so they're growing up to know.
And that's the point. And that's the point of this Aboriginal and Indigenous media outlet that we're talking about. These people doing stuff on our land.
And what's even crazier is because they know they're not indigenous, so they're not. How should I say? They don't have rights. Certain rights that we will have. So they know that they're not indigenous. If they get in trouble with, say, not to bring it up, cocaine, they'd have to serve their full time or things like that. They don't have certain rights that Aboriginal or indigenous people have, or disabilities. We would still have certain rights. Yeah,
and that's the rights of indigenous people. But most of our but most of our people aren't in their proper person, meaning they don't even know what their nationality is. Meaning they don't even know who they are. So chances are, if you don't know who you are, you don't know which rights apply to you. And then again, if you do know some rights, you still have to be in your proper person. Because then you can't go to them saying, oh, you owe me something, because they're a commercial venue. You can't seek any constitutional whatever in a private venue, because they're not constitutional. They're acting like it, but they're not, and they admit that they're not. You see what I'm saying? So there's a bigger game going on where our people need to understand that they're not government, although that they're acting like they are.
They're government.
You see what I'm saying? So in certain situations, you hold them to that, but in reality, you know they're not government. You see what I'm saying? So when they call you into their courts, you say, "Let me see your oath to the Constitution." Since they're acting like it, and then they can't produce it, then what? Okay, this matter is dismissed.
You wasted my time.
And then Noble Drawley in his express trust, the 1010-5905, he said, if we go to their courts, how much they owe us? Like $1,000 for every 15 minutes or something like that?
Yeah.
So, because that's diversity of citizenship. You're dealing with my spiritual development. You're telling me to go to this court that's not constitutional. You're a foreigner on my land.
Religion.
You see what I'm saying? But our people need to be on that level to think like that, because we think, oh, we're black and we're 14th Amendment citizens and we're Indians and we're citizens. We're not citizens of that government, because it's not government. It's a private corporation company.
Selling out our where we really come from.
Exactly.
Selling us out.
Exactly.
Wasting our time. That's their way of the mind game of taking from us.
Yeah, it's mental warfare. And Noble Drawley said they're living off our virtues. The whole parking meter taxes, that's small, but they're still making a lot of
money off
fiat off that. Exactly. And they're living off us not knowing, like, oh, we have the right to park and we have the right to travel. And then again, even with the license plate, right? When I was telling my mom I was learning this stuff, I was parking on the street and they kept putting tickets on my car because the commercial plate makes it a commercial vehicle. You know what I'm saying? In a way.
Private.
So exactly. So they were able to put the ticket on it. But once I put my private plates on it, they weren't ticketing me. Because there's no information on that. They can't send the ticket nowhere. So they stopped ticketing me. You know what I'm saying? So once our people realize, oh, that's how they get you, because you agree to be in a commercial jurisdiction, then they can't mess with you anymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? You see how that works? So once our people realize, oh, I only have to pay this so-called parking meter because I have commercial plates on my private automobile, which I thought I needed to get. But Article 20 on the Declaration on Human Rights says we have the right to association. We can't be forced to associate, so we don't have to have insurance on nothing. You know what I'm saying? So all of this is pay attention to local politics. You know what I'm saying? Because it's more than what people think it is. It really is.
Save a lot of money.
Not only that, but get rid of a lot of the corruption that we know is corrupt.
Yeah. That's not good for us.
It's really not.
And we can't build if we staying in debt.
Which isn't really our debt.
Exactly.
You see, rights of indigenous people alleviates all that. the Constitution, which Noble Drew said enforce the Constitution, alleviates all of that. Again, the video talking about parking, enforce the Constitution. You don't have to pay to park on no public street because it's public.
And it's funny because when you look back at the treaty, we never had the responsibility of taxes. The Europeans did.
Yeah, because they paid us.
And it kills me every time I'm getting ready to do my taxes, the Internal Revenue Service, and I'm just starting to look into, like you said, the Inquisition Revenue Service. Exactly. So I'm starting to look into all of them, and just because of the situation that I'm in, I have to claim my taxes. I still work, you know what I mean? I have to.
And a lot of us are in that situation. Again, one of the 48 laws of power is to keep your enemy dependent on you. And that's their whole system, is to keep us dependent on them. They know that we're soon to
break free from that. Well, some. I know I'm trying.
Isn't there like a government shutdown today?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
I got the notice from Senator Jack Reed today with the anchor right in the middle of his name. You know, trying to keep us whole. So you know, it's like they want to cut the circulation off my ankle. ANKHLE. You know what I mean? So I'm starting to look into things with etymology as well as living situations daily. I'm learning. Again, the other day I met with him, and he wrote the name in capital letters.
Yeah, and that's exactly how
he said the corporation, but he never looked at it the way I told him. I said, so that's the capital, and we're just the lower class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I looked at it different. So I'm learning and opening my mind in different ways. Instead of saying, oh, this is corporation, I'm like, corporation gaining capital. In the lower case, they're keeping us lower class, and we're a lower case than what they want to deal with compared to their big case.
You know why? Because they can't deal with the lowercase name because that's attached to a natural person. They can only deal with commerce. Only because they're a private corporation. You see what I'm saying? If they were government, they would be the unincorporated body politic where humans can talk to other humans. But they're dealing with artificial constructs. They're dealing with just the record.
And isn't that what our agreement was for commerce?
Yeah.
So they tricked us into doing
the only thing that that's the only thing that they can deal with because they're not government. They have no jurisdiction over this land, period.
That is why the girl over the phone explained to me, I'm human.
Exactly.
She learned all her rights.
Exactly.
She knows all her rights. I'm human. So now you just broke that down because, like you said, they can't stop humans from talking to humans or being for humans. That's crazy.
This is why when I sent I don't want to say his real name, I'll just say Hammer. When I sent him the legal information in the mail, they were able to open it because I was sending it to one of their property, because that name that they use, I put it in all lowercase, but they have on the record the all capital letters. So they opened the mail, they seen that it was legal information, and they said, oh, I meant to bring it, so never mind. They said, you know, this information can't be sent by a third party. Because I was informing him, like, they have no jurisdiction over you. You know, and then when I wrote him the letter, he said, can you send me more legal information? So our people are in this actively in the corruption, and they need a way out, but still these policy enforcers are making it so we can't even talk to our own people. You see what I'm saying? Like, this problem is deep.
Is that male getting sent to inside prison or something?
Yeah, they're holding him. But again, like, as an example, I was telling his partner to tell his lawyer to do the writ of habeas corpus, because since he's not declared national, I can't really deal with any of his affairs. But he's still our people, so I still have to inform him. You know what I mean?
I got my 50 notes today.
That's good. But, not for me, for the nationality card. Just on the record.
No, and as well as I did make. Did you get my email?
Nah. But hold on, let me finish this. So I sent him the mail, and then they just open it and just get rid of it. You know what I'm saying?
Like he never even received what you said.
No, they clearly wrote on it, return the sender.
Okay, you got one of those.
And on the envelope, it was ripped, so they opened it.
Yep.
And they seen the law information. I was like, get this out of here.
They don't want him to get educated.
Exactly.
And the sad is because they will cut down library time and things like that in there. They'll keep you locked down. You know, knowing people want to find a way out because there's plenty of people. So, for instance, like the woman I'm explaining to you about, she probably follows all the rules. So she was a librarian for the first couple of years she was in there. She's learned now. She probably was quiet, never argued, so she can go down to the library and learn. But yet again, there's books in there on anatomy. They know people can literally educate themselves, get out of prison, take those tests with flying colors. But because they keep us, like you said, against our own people, people go to seg, solitaire. You know, people
for no reason
get called. Things happen in the prison system that shouldn't happen in the prison system.
Because that's part of the prison industrial complex to keep our people suppressed. The same thing that our people talk about, the corruption in the system. It's just, we're just exposing it for what it truly is. These people are colonists. They had no intentions on educating us, and they they benefit off us being ignorant.
Yes.
Literally. And then they also benefit off our own people selling our own people out.
Yes.
So instead of running for mayor, how about you inform the people and institute a council of court so they stop arresting our people? And then they stop trying to take our people to court for not paying parking tickets.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? That's
I've been telling people too, there's a way you can dispute that. You can dispute that. I've been telling people, even if you have commercial plates, you can still dispute your ticket. There was a kid who got 2 tickets the same day for an Irish parade. And I said, well, you can dispute it because they gave you one in the morning and then another one at the time when they had it start. At 11 a.m. it's going to start. So they gave him 2 tickets. I said, you probably would end up having to pay for one because it doesn't make sense that they gave you 2 and you was in your home sleeping. But he's Caucasian, so he's not indigenous.
Yeah, but still, the Constitution for the United States of America is the contract of how the Europeans are going to conduct business on our land. So the Constitution still applies to the various Europeans, like the British, the Caucasian people, British, Irish, Italian. It still applies to them.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So he can still fight it like this is unconstitutional.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not just us. This affects everybody on our land.
With the constitutional law.
Yeah.
They are not indigenous.
Yeah, no, they're not indigenous.
But they can fight things back with the Constitution.
Yes, with the Constitution, yes.
If they educate themselves correctly with their rights, but they don't have indigenous rights.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's interesting.
But because you have to understand, the whole founding of the 13 colonies was us, the Moors, recognizing the Europeans as a nation of people.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So international commerce, dealing with treaties and constitution, was one government talking to another government. You can conduct business on his land, but you're going to operate. You're going to operate based off the Iroquois Law of the Great Peace, which is a republic.
And it's crazy because basically, like you said, the government, we are our own government, and people aren't understanding that. And it's like, again, there's a picture I have on my Facebook. I don't think you might have seen it. And it's a young king, indigenous king, reading a book, and there's a police officer behind him with a gun. Because once you educate yourself, they know it's yours. They want to take that from you. They don't want that to change. So it's like I walk around limping on my foot, but they know I'm getting educated. I'm not fully competent of everything that I should know, but they know I can get the point quick and still say, for instance, my shoulder's pulled, whatever, and an officer still strained my arm back. What are the rights for police officers with disabled people? You know what I mean? Like,
but you have to understand, they're not government. Their whole job is to cause this type of agony.
Yeah, chaos.
They're Knights Templars. That's what they do. Read about the Inquisition. That's what they've always done.
Book. I actually left my mask, so it's gonna be
I talk about that in my book too. That's what they've always done.
Knights Templars right on the front.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'll show you where's my book at.
But if we became our own Knights Templars, if we became one of our own Knights Templars,
but that would be the Mufti or the sheriffs to protect ourselves. We elect our own people to protect us.
And he's not. And basically, what you're saying is Kobe Dennis isn't competent enough to.
That's not what I'm saying. Is why isn't he talking about this? I'm not saying because like you said, we're not criticizing him. We're criticizing the principles.
Yeah. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? We're never gonna. So let me just bring it closer. Since we're talking about the Knights Templar, this is what they've always been doing. Read the Inquisition. They've always been doing this. We keep calling that racism. That's terrorism. They've always been doing this.
They're the terrorists.
Yeah. They've never stopped. And then again, Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution says we shall guarantee in each state a republic, and then we'll protect the people against domestic terrorists. And then even the Marines, or not, well, I was a Marine, so I'm saying Marines, but the military, they take an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. These people are domestic terrorists. When are you going to realize that? You know what I mean? But the problem is our people aren't informed. So that was the whole point of this getting into local politics thing, to inform people like this is what's going on, not because they don't like you because you're brown.
And he's smart for when he says, get out there and vote. Your vote matters, but they're not educating on what's behind voting and what justice and what we really need as people.
It's like that's not our system. So why are we even participating in that anyway?
Exactly.
Good point.
And again, with the general civil orders that we read last week, it told you who can and can't vote in their system. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Excuse me.
It's crazy. It's like children playing games. If
Yeah.
you don't participate in the game, if somebody's trying to play tag with you and you're not running after them, then the game's over.
Yeah.
they don't have nothing to do.
Exactly. Our people really need to realize that we have
Mhm.
imperium. We have the power to command. Once they realize that, oh, all of your whole economic system is based off our economic backs and our
I don't know how to
labor.
play this game anymore.
And I feel this is why I'm so into pushing the paperwork that I have, because you have a photo of Gina Raimondo right there, and I
Yeah.
wasn't catching on when the woman I was speaking to in prison was telling me the whole basement where the kitchen cafeteria is was flooded. And she told me, she said, "Oh, Gina Raimondo's coming." Like I was supposed to be writing a letter about how the prison systems
Mhm.
are failing people inside
but-
the prison system.
But they know that it's their system.
Yeah, but I'm supposed to be speaking on the rights.
Yeah.
And right now, since I'm not speaking on the rights where I can make a drastic change, they're trying to make other changes.
Mhm.
They're still
Yes,
taking
but-
from us instead of me standing up for indigenous people.
Exactly. But all of us need to do that.
Yeah.
Because once we have a loud voice, they have to stop. They
Yeah.
have to stop
Once
treating
you-
our people so
I
poorly.
even wanted to create a petition, and I didn't know what I was making a petition for.
Yeah, but-
I knew I had to get a certain amount of. There's 170,000 people in Rhode Island. I'm like, it would be nothing to get 170,000
Yeah, but here's the thing.
signatures in 30 days. You know what I mean?
What are the mental competence of the people need to be somewhere to figure out what you're trying to
Yeah.
do? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because if we're not playing the game, they'll just go play with somebody else.
Exactly.
It's that easy.
And so I wanted to read this. This is from the General Civil Orders again. Because the federal government service company is privately owned and operated, only shareholders, known as electors, have a real say in the elections and administration. Only trustees, known as members of Congress, have the right to determine how the national trust assets are protected, though they are obligated as trustees to do a reasonable job of it. And only the states have the right to comply if the stipulated services aren't up to par. So again, we don't have any say in their system because of their system. Like if me and you go into business and we're doing indigenous paint company, right? And we're board of directors. Only we have a say in who gets to do what in our system. That's
Because keep in mind, it's private.
exactly. And then again, right on Broad Street, it has a seal of Providence, incorporated 1836, something like that. So it's private.
See, and that's what they say I'm the hope to break into Providence plantations. Plantations. They're just like, again, he said the Providence citizens, the Providence slaves.
Yeah.
Citizen means slaves, you know what I mean? So I'm supposed to be breaking our minds from that.
But you can only do it with knowledge. That's the point of this.
This is crazy. This is why I like George Washington, though, being my in-law, because he kept Moors in their superior position.
Yeah.
He did not try to overstep
Exactly.
them. You know what I mean? So I'm like, even though they acknowledge that they're Europeans and they had certain rights. So the Sultan letter of Morocco, he made sure that Moors were kept in their superior
Yep.
position. He
George-
did not overstep his boundaries.
Exactly.
So I can
George
respect my
Washington
in-law
can.
for that. I don't respect him for still slaving, you know, in-laws and my ancestors. I don't respect Robert E. Lee for that, but they openly admit in his surrendering quotes, Robert E. Lee, he says that he foreseen a divine blessing. The truth, kind, wisdom would be in Providence. They openly admit stealing Kemetic spirituality.
Yeah, they
and
always
taking our
admit
rights.
it. They always admit it. They always admit it. Because they have to, because they're dealing with karmic law. You know what I'm saying? So again, since you mentioned George Washington's letter.
They're gonna come back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're talking about George Washington keeping up with the paying taxes to us, which Thomas Jefferson didn't afterwards. He's the one who instituted the Barbary Wars, so they stopped paying taxes to us. So here's George Washington's letter to the Sultan of Morocco, December 1st, 1789. And then keep in mind Sundry Free Moors Act of 1790. So
What?
Sundry Free Moors Act?
I haven't read
Well,
it.
Sundry Free Moors Act is a group of Moors, a group of mixed Moors went to the House of Representatives and put on the record that they weren't black, they were Moors.
Yeah.
Therefore, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship applies to them between Morocco and the Europeans on our land.
Oh wow.
Because at this time, the Europeans were instituting their Christian black codes, the Negro Act, you know what I'm saying, to keep our people in a subservient position. So they invoked the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, which is what we're trying to do right now, enforce the Constitution. So George Washington's letter, great and magnanimous friend, since the date of the letter which the late Congress, by their president, addressed your Imperial Majesty, the United States of America have thought proper to change their government and institute a new one, agreeable to the Constitution of which I have the honor herewith to enclose a copy. So again, based on the first sentence, aren't we taught in school that George Washington is the first president? By his own words, he admits that he's not the first president.
Yeah.
So again, General Education Board, they're going to not teach us anything.
They're not going to teach the truth that a Moor was the first president.
That this is Moor's dominions, period. Right? So the time necessarily employed in the erroneous task and the disarrangements associated by so great though peaceful revolution will apologize and account for your Majesty's not having received those regularly advised marks of attention from the United States, which the friendship and magnanimity of your conduct toward them afford reason to expect. So he's saying, I'm sorry for not paying you taxes. George Washington, the European, is apologizing to the Moors for not paying the Moors taxes to be on our land. That's what he just said. The United States having unanimously appointed me to supreme executive authority in this nation, aren't we taught in school that he was elected? Clearly, he wasn't elected as the first president. He was appointed, and those presidents before him.
Just like they say, get a court-appointed attorney. Yeah, basically.
So we want you to lead this, all right? Your Majesty's letter of August 17, 1788, which by reason of the dissolution of the late government, so again, there was a government before him already in existence, remain unanswered, has been delivered to me. I have also received the letters of your Majesty, of your Imperial Majesty, has been so kind as to write in favor of the United States to the Bashars of Tunis and Tripoli, and I present to you the sincere acknowledgments and thanks of the United States for this important mark of your friendship towards them. So again, our people kept stealing Europeans and holding them for ransom, and our Sultan was like, stop doing that, because we were trying to increase the relations between us and them, because we were constantly fighting with them, constantly stealing their ships, constantly stealing their women.
Because they were on our land.
And they were also instituting the Inquisition against us. So we're dealing with multiple parties at this moment in time. We're dealing with some Europeans who want to be our friends and end the thousands of years wars between us and them.
Yeah.
We're dealing with some Europeans who want to continue to fight against us. We're dealing with some Moors or Moriscos who are working with the Europeans to fight against us. And we're dealing with some Moors who want to continue the peace and friendship between us and them with the other Europeans. You get what I'm saying? So we're dealing with multiple parties at this. It's not just all Moors were with them or all Moors were against them.
Yeah.
And it's basically going on right now with me and my situation.
It's going on with all of us.
With a lot of people, like on the side of the story I told you, the guy's from Morocco, and it sounds like he's working with Europeans to fight against Moors. Because he's worried about his business. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But that's the sellout. Same thing with any so-called Asiatic person trying to be in any position and not talking about this. You know what I'm saying?
And that letter right there, because you're breaking it down for me, again, I'm going to have to get back to definitions. It makes me want to fight fight not physically, but educationally, because I don't want nothing stolen from me.
Because you have a birthright.
Breed from them. Literally, from them.
And you have a birthright.
And I don't want to be taken from no more.
Exactly.
Like,
right?
So again, we're all tired.
We're all tired. Right? All right, boom. We greatly regret hostile dispositions of those regencies towards this nation, who have never injured them, is not to be removed on terms of our power to comply with. Within our territories there are no mines, whether of gold or silver, and this young nation, just recovering from the waste and dissolution of a long war, have not as yet had time to acquire riches by agriculture and commerce, but our soil is bountiful and our people industrious, and we have reason to flatter ourselves that we will gradually become useful to our friends. The encouragement which your Majesty has been pleased generously to give to our commerce with your dominions, the punctuality with which you have caused the treaty to be observed, and the just and generous measures taken in the case of Captain Proctor make a deep impression on the United States. So what did he just say?
Break it down for me.
I'm going to break it down. He said, the encouragement which your Majesty has been pleased generously to give to our commerce with your dominions. What is commerce? Business and trade. So yeah, money. Business and trade. What is dominion? Land and sovereignty. So what is he saying? He's saying, thank you for allowing us to conduct business on your land, the Moorish lands. You know what I'm saying? So Gina Raimondo, she knows this isn't Rhode Island.
She knows it's indigenous land.
Exactly. So they're doing business on our land. They're not government.
They owe us.
They owe us. Not just owe us, owe us. You know what I'm saying? So again,
they've made so much money in corporations, and we're not a corporation. They've made so much money for corporations by keeping us uneducated.
Against our estate, exactly, and keeping us uneducated. So again, you saying this makes you want to learn even more because you have an inheritance.
And you know what's crazy is because they sit there and they push every day, education, education, education. They know that they're keeping the real education from indigenous people on this indigenous land. To actually teach the youth the truth. You know, a lot of them, like you said, they can't trace back their family tree. A lot of them don't really know what their nationalities are. You have kids that, you know, I learned not to lie no more. I'm gonna just say, like, I learned not to lie no more. So a lot of kids, they grow up, oh, I'm Dominican, I'm Puerto Rican, and some of them are really just trying to fit in. You know what I mean? And they're like, no, they need to be proud of who they are because regardless, they are indigenous, they're aboriginal, but a lot of them can't trace back their heritage. So they still need to feel equal, learn their rights, that they're on indigenous land. You know, and another thing I seen on your page the other day, I was actually proud of when you pointed out, basically saying that Indians, because Waka Flocka, he's full. I seen something on that, so when you showed me that, I'm like, hey, he knows he's fully indigenous to America. He's full Cherokee. Cherokee Indians can also trace back their only Cherokee Indians have a spot in the DC archives, which that blew my mind as well. There's no other tribe, no Pequot, no Narragansett. Cherokee Indians are obviously owed some kind of inheritance if it's in the DC archives as well. That's the thing.
Because since we're dealing with nationality, the reason why I made that post on Facebook that you're talking about, I said, I wonder what these Indian leaders are going to tell their followers when they find out that Indian title is not ownership, because this land is not India. You can't claim land here and say you're Indian. This land was never called India by our ancestors, so that would mean you're in dishonor, wouldn't it?
Basically,
You know what I'm saying? So that's why I made that post. You know what I'm saying? Because the people of the land are the Moors. Clearly, the United States, the European George Washington, is thanking the Sultan of Morocco, Moors, for allowing him, for allowing Europeans to conduct business on their land. Now, isn't the United States in North America? The so-called So what does that make America? Moors dominions.
Moors dominions.
So how can you claim to be Indian and then claim some land in Morocco? You would have to be a Moor, wouldn't you?
And that's when it backtracks to North Africa, Northwest Africa is the new Morocco.
And didn't Drew Ali say that?
And the reason why I like your class, like you and Frank Burrell are, oh my gosh. But Frank Burrell, he teaches the symbolisms, he teaches etymology, he teaches us to open our minds. You're teaching the laws. So that's the difference. He's trying to work on a book right now. You already made your book. So you guys are both on the same level. He's more or less opening the minds, talking about Mayans, how north is south, east is west, west is east. So he's in that, but you're teaching the laws of indigenous. He knows. It's like, I don't want to say he's keeping it a secret. He knows his rights as an indigenous person.
And he even talks about going to RV Bay Publications to learn about law.
That's how I found out. Is watching one of his videos. He's like, go to RV. I had to repeat it a couple times, and I went and Googled it, and I'm like, and then, because I was like, RV Bay, Bay. I spelled it wrong a couple times. Once I went on Google, the publications page popped up. So I'm even telling a lot of people about it, and I don't mean to disrespect them when I tell them. I'm like, you know, I'm a little bit special because I can trace back my heritage. Basically, I want you to talk to your grandparents, try to find out where you come from, because if you was born in North Carolina, you need to find out if you can trace back your family tree somehow in North Carolina, because North Carolina really is technically South Carolina, and Hispanics was, I want to say either Hispanics or Hispanics were slaved in South Carolina. One of them, I can't recall, but one of them was slaved, and that's like Puff Daddy right now, what is it, P. Diddy, trying to buy the North Carolina Panthers, and he's trying to work with Colin Kaepernick, and that's basically slaving a football team to make money off of them.
But that's what all of it is.
North is South, and he's slaving, like you said, he's a seller, slaving his own people. So that's not a power move. He's just working with bad boys, going flunk, and he doesn't know which way to go, where to invest his money at anymore. So the Europeans who take from us, and they're turning us, instead of getting educated as indigenous people, they're turning into one of them. And that makes them slave us.
And what did Nas say? Nas said the problem is we started thinking like the colonists till Noble Drew Ali started dropping that consciousness. We keep trying to live off our people. Nothing's going to work like that. I'll say it again. Nothing's going to work like that.
Layla went there. We went to Sweet Chicks, and it was
all right, but hold on. Let me get back to this.
Nas knows what he's talking about.
Let me go. All right, so this is from Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, right? I'm just going to zoom up to the camera. Indian title. So because we're still talking about local politics, because there's still people talking about we're Native American Indians, right?
Correct.
here, right? You're like at my chest, not the book. Hold on, let's get the American flag in the thing too, right? So this is, again, Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. Ask any of your so-called Indian leaders or black leaders, and they know about this law dictionary. Indian title. Permissive right. So that means someone's giving you permission, huh? Of occupancy, meaning you're just there. Granted by federal government to Aboriginal possessors of the land. So if you're an Aboriginal possessor, wouldn't you just have it? Like, what do you mean you need permission from some Europeans to be on your land?
Yeah.
Semicolon, right? Which means it is mere possession, not specifically recognized as ownership, and may be extinguished by federal government at any time. So what does that mean? That means you don't own it. So again, you can't claim to be Indian on a land that's never been called India. You get what I'm saying? And then, oh, were you still zooming in? My bad.
No, that's fine.
Okay. What else does it say? Let me see. And then Indian reservation is part of public domain. How is it public if you're supposed to be Indian? It's supposed to be private. It's supposed to be your private land. And let me see. Indian tribe, right? Let's go into that. What an Indian tribe is. A separate and distinct community or body of Aboriginal Indian race of men found in the United States. Now, we would have to break down what race is, wouldn't we? Isn't race... Hold on, let me turn this projector off. Doesn't the word race mean to shoot out? Right? So, we all shot out from the same family. Like, the same... Everyone says all of the humans come from the African woman, right? Which is true. So, we're all one race.
Yeah.
So, there's one. So, how are you a different race of men? So, already that's a fraud. And they said found in the United States. Is the United States a country?
No.
No, it's not.
It's not.
Now, to prove that, go to this. Title. No, that's wrong. Like, that's dealing with like criminal stuff.
With the American flag, I actually want to look up the definition of spangled. You know what I mean? Because spank, you know, like what they did to just slaves. I look at etymology crazy now. Like, I actually break down words in my own. I spell spangled with spank on it because that's what they did to us back in the day. You know what I mean? Take from us, beat us down. Yeah, covered with spangles or other small sparkling objects, spangled banner. So we're looking at Title 28. It's crazy.
If you're a race of men found in the United States, doesn't this say, right?
Chapter 6.
In their own code, don't they admit that the United States is a corporation?
Yes.
Not a geographical landmass, and not a country, and if you look up the word country, it'll say geographical landmass. So if you're a race of men found in the United States, are you a human being? Can a race of men be found in Walmart?
No, that's
You see why Indian title isn't ownership of property now? Because you can't be a race of men found in the United States. It doesn't make sense. The United States is not a geographical landmass.
Is this the right one that you're looking for? I doubt it.
What does it say?
United States Council for the United States. 28 U.S. Code 3.
Yeah, that's it. Now scroll down. Scroll down to number 15.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 15. All right. United States means a federal corporation.
Does that say landmass?
No.
Does that say country?
No.
Does that say geographical location?
It says federal corporation.
So can again? So can you be found? Can you be a race of men found in Walmart?
No. It also says an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States.
Yeah. So anything a part of them is the United States, meaning they're a corporation. So so the so-called state of Rhode Island is an enclave of the United States, which is a corporation. So the state of Rhode Island is a corporation, not a governmental state.
On indigenous land.
Exactly. So again, this is why Indians don't own anything. Because Indian isn't your nationality, first of all.
More.
Exactly. Indian isn't your nationality. And this country is not India. Does this look like the Indian flag to you?
No.
So how can any Indian claim land where this is the land? Morocco is the land. That's like a Chinese person claiming indigenous ties to Germany. That's not China. You see the game?
And like you said, this is a time where they're trying to say it's uniting Asia.
But we're Asiatics. Because we used to call the planet Asia. So we would be the Asiatics, the people of the planet. You see what I'm saying? So that was my little spiel on local politics. Don't, like he was saying how he was in the military, you know, that reaches certain people. And he was talking about, you know, things like people want to hear, like, no firefighter wants to go through a platoon change. No one wants to change their platoon. I hate to change my platoon. Like in the Marines, every 2 years you got to go to a new duty station. Or you know, sometimes it'll be longer. It sucks to leave the people you know what I mean? Because those people become like your family. So he's like reaching out to people and he's able to touch them with like emotional stuff. When we need to deal with facts and people are getting robbed, you know what I mean, based on these
Robbed of their
parking
rights.
Exactly.
Literally their rights.
Yeah.
I've been robbed of my rights for so long till I've seen your video.
Well, I mean, we all have been robbed.
Nobody has time to actually sit down, educate themselves, or really, like you said, truly know who they are, where they come from.
Yeah. And the whole having to like because most people think they have to get a job to pay so-called bills. That's a fraud too. Read the rights of indigenous people. It says you have the right to your lands and resources back. We already established that so-called black people are counted as indigenous people. So that means they don't have to pay nobody nothing. Read the rights of indigenous people.
And that's crazy because you just said they have the right to their resources. They're trying to shut down National Grid with a place called Energy Source now. And they just know that we have rights to our resources. So they're just
swapping
names and keep
exactly.
Us, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's what they've always been doing. Nothing's changed.
So how are we going to make it change, Jamhal?
By doing this. Educating our people.
So we can decolonize.
Yeah. Because once we start getting into the administrative powers, which is what these Europeans are in, they're in the administrative power. So like you just said about National Grid, they're handing over the administration to another corporation company, which they control. Once we take that out of their hands and nationalize the land, which is what the Cubans did, once we say, oh, we're running our own land now, y'all can go home, that's the remedy. That's the only way it's going to get fixed. Free national government.
So ready for you to become a teacher at Youth Build. So ready.
All right, but you know, we gotta cut right now. So, peace. Thank you for tuning in.